The maid's impossible feat, a Brisbane tale. No millionaire could do it, but his maid achieved the impossible with his crippled son. The sound of silver cutlery tapping against fine porcelain stopped dead. It was a sudden, heavy silence, the kind that makes the air feel thick, as if someone had absorbed all the oxygen from the luxurious dining room of the restaurant. "Mister." Sterling strode in, pushing open the double doors with the urgency of a man who believes the world revolves only because he gives the order. He adjusted his tie knot with a brusque, irritated movement. He had been searching for his son and the maid for 10 minutes. 10 minutes wasted. 10 minutes that he, a businessman billing millions per hour, could not afford. His mind was on the photo shoot for Magnate and Family magazine, not on caring for his son. He needed little Charlie to be in his immaculate wheelchair, smiling faintly, projecting that image of the devoted, suffering father that appealed so much to investors. Maria cried out, unconcerned by the other diners. Her voice echoed off the walls. He looked around for the wheelchair. He always looked first for the chrome metal, the black wheels, the medical apparatus. He never looked for the child first. He looked for the chair, but the chair was empty. It was tucked away near a giant pot plant, abandoned like an old piece of junk. Sterling felt a cold knot in his stomach. Where was the boy? He had fallen. He had been kidnapped. His eyes swept the room in a panic, not out of love, but out of a loss of control. And then, he saw them. Sterling froze in the middle of the central aisle. His brain refused to process the image for a few seconds. It was an absurd, ridiculous, and, in his eyes, terrifying scene. There, in the center of a sunbeam streaming through the window, was Maria. She hadn't taken off her work uniform. She was wearing that ridiculous blue domestic worker dress, and even worse, those loud yellow rubber gloves she used for cleaning the mansion's toilets. She was kneeling on the polished floor, one knee jammed into the marble, in a posture of total submission and service, but she wasn't cleaning the floor. Her hands, encased in yellow latex, were holding Charlie's right ankle with infinite delicacy. And Charlie, Sterling felt his legs weaken. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. His mobile phone slipped from his hand, and the sound of the device hitting the floor rang out like a gunshot, but he didn't even blink. Charlie was standing, not leaning against the wall, not clinging to crutches. The 5-year-old boy, whom 5 Swiss specialists, 3 German ones, and 2 Americans, had declared unviable for walking. He was standing on his own feet, upright, his back straight inside his little black tuxedo. The boy looked down, observing Maria tie the laces of his patent leather shoe. There was no pain on his face. There was a smile, a mischievous, conspiratorial, confident smile. Maria was whispering something to him, and the boy let out a giggle that sounded to Sterling like the strangest noise in the world, because Charlie never laughed like that at home. At home, Charlie was a silent piece of furniture in an expensive chair. Here, standing up, he looked like a giant. Sterling watched Maria finish tying the bow. He watched her give a gentle pat to the calf with the rubber glove. He watched the boy lift one foot, then the other, testing the fit, maintaining balance unaided. Sterling's mind collapsed. This had to be a trick, an optical illusion, or worse, criminal negligence. The boy had bones of glass. His spine wouldn't hold. He was going to kill himself. This woman, this ignoramus who barely knew how to read, was playing with the most expensive medical investment of his life. She was risking the air. The initial shock gave way to a surge of hot blood rushing up his neck to his ears. He didn't see a miracle. He saw disobedience. He saw danger. He saw a dirty employee touching his crippled son's Italian silk suit with cleaning gloves, forcing him to do the impossible just to humiliate the father. Sterling clenched his fists until his knuckles turned white. Air rushed back into his lungs with a gasp, bringing with it fury and humiliation. "What are you doing?" Sterling's shout broke the magic. It was a guttural bellow loaded with poison. Maria flinched violently but didn't let go of the boy. Her instinct wasn't to run. It was to hold on to Charlie's ankle to secure his stability after the fright. Charlie, however, wobbled. His father's voice always had that effect. It was like a strong wind pushing him down. Sterling didn't walk towards them. He ran. His designer shoes slipped slightly on the waxed floor as he charged towards the maid like a blind bull. "Let go. Let go right now, you animal," Sterling roared, reaching them. Without thinking, Sterling threw a brutal backhand. He didn't hit the child. He struck Maria's shoulder. The shove was so strong and contemptuous that the woman lost her balance and fell sideways, her yellow-gloved hands sliding pathetically on the cold marble. "Dad, no!" Charlie screamed. It was a sharp, terrified cry. Losing Maria's support, the boy swayed dangerously. His little arms flailed in the air, looking for balance. Sterling, his face contorted with rage, grabbed his son by the armpits with a roughness that made the child wince in pain. He lifted him into the air as if he were a rag doll, ignoring that the boy had been perfectly standing a second ago, and desperately looked around for somewhere to put him. "You're insane!" he yelled at Maria, who was trying to get up from the floor, straightening her apron with trembling hands. "You could have killed him. Look at his legs, they're useless. How dare you stand him up? Sir, please, can he?" Maria tried to say, her voice cracking, her eyes fixed on the boy kicking in the air. "Shut up, Sterling," he cut her off, pointing an accusing finger, moving close until he invaded her personal space, forcing her to shrink back. "You are not a doctor, you clean my house. That's what you are. Look at those gloves." Sterling pointed with disgust at her hands. The diners at nearby tables had stopped pretending not to watch. An older man, at table 5, had stood up, indignant at the violence, but Sterling's murderous glare kept him at bay. "Touching my son with those filthy gloves," Sterling continued, spitting out the words, "full of chemicals, bacteria, and you force him to stand. Why? So he falls and breaks his spine? You want to leave him a vegetable forever? Is that what you want? So you can sue me later." Sterling walked towards the empty wheelchair, dragging Charlie, who whimpered silently, hanging from his father's arms. Sterling deposited the boy in the chair with force, fastening the seatbelt as if it were a straitjacket. "Stay there," he ordered his panting son. "Don't move. You don't walk. Understand that, once and for all, Carlos. You do not walk." Charlie shrunk in the chair. His feet in the shoes perfectly tied by Maria hung limply now, not from lack of strength, but from lack of spirit. The boy lowered his head, tears falling onto his black bow tie. Sterling turned back to Maria. She was already standing, humiliated, her uniform disheveled, surrounded by rich people, looking at her with a mixture of pity and repulsion. But she wasn't crying. She was breathing deeply. "Get out," Sterling yelled, pointing towards the exit. "Out of my sight. Wait in the car. You're fired. As soon as we get home, you collect your rags and leave. I will not allow an ignoramus to jeopardize my assets and my son's health by playing at miracles." "Mr. Sterling," Maria said. Her voice was not a shout, it was a firm whisper that cut the air. The boy wasn't playing. "Shut up." Sterling looked around for the manager. "Where is the manager? I want this woman removed from here. She is disturbing the patrons and has assaulted my son." The manager, a short, nervous man, rushed over with 2 waiters behind him. "Sir, please, calm down." "I will not calm down." Sterling ran a hand through his hair, distraught. "Look at her." She forced a disabled person to stand. "It's child abuse. Take her away, or I'll call the police." Sterling leaned over the nearest table, resting both hands, breathing with difficulty, feeling like the victim of a conspiracy. He looked at Charlie in the chair. The boy wasn't looking at him. The boy was looking at Maria. And in the child's gaze, there was no fear for the maid. There was a plea. Maria looked at the yellow gloves on her hands. Then, she looked at Sterling. The tension was unbearable. Anyone else would have run away in shame. But Maria took a step forward, a single step towards the man who had just fired her and humiliated her in front of all the high society in the city. "You can fire me, boss," she said. And for the first time, her tone lost its subservient sweetness to gain an edge of maternal steel. "But if I leave now, you will never know why your son didn't fall." Sterling looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "You are challenging me." "I am telling you the truth," Maria replied, raising her gloved hands as if they were weapons. "You see dirty gloves. I see the only hands that have held your son when he cried in pain at night while you were at your business dinners. Get her out," Sterling yelled, striking the table, causing a glass of wine to jump and smash against the floor, staining the white tablecloth red like an open wound. But the waiters didn't move. Something in Maria's posture, in the dignity with which she withstood the insults, paralyzed everyone in the room. The humiliation Sterling intended to inflict was turning against him, dense and sticky. "Don't touch me," she told the waiter, who tried to approach without taking her eyes off the millionaire. "I will leave. But first, you are going to listen. Because those Swiss doctors charged millions. But they don't know what I know." Sterling laughed, a dry, nervous, cruel laugh. "And what does a maid know that a Harvard doctor doesn't?" Maria slowly removed her right glove. The sound of the stretching latex sounded obscene in the silence. She dropped the yellow glove to the floor, at Sterling's feet, like someone throwing down a glove of challenge in ancient times. "I know his legs are not dead, Mr. Sterling," she said. "I know the only thing dead in that house is your faith in him. the denial of reality. The yellow glove lay on the marble floor like a dead animal, separating two worlds, the sterile wealth of Sterling and the fierce loyalty of Maria. Sterling looked at the glove, then at his son's legs. The panic in his chest transformed into an obsessive need for control. He could not allow this rebellion. If the boy stood up, the doctors were wrong. If the doctors were wrong, he had wasted a fortune on lies. And if he had wasted a fortune on lies, then this woman, this simple domestic worker who smelled of bleach and cheap soap, was superior to him. That equation was unacceptable to his ego. Sterling suddenly crouched in front of the wheelchair, ignoring Maria for a second. His well-kept, manicured hands grabbed Charlie's calves. It wasn't a paternal caress. It was a cold, technical medical examination. "Look," Sterling hissed, squeezing the lean muscle of the boy through the trouser fabric. "Look, these legs are sticks. They have no muscle mass. They are atrophied." Charlie tried to pull his leg away, shrinking in the chair, frightened by his father's sudden intrusion. "Don't touch me," the boy whimpered, a small sound loaded with rejection. Sterling stopped, frozen. His son was rejecting him. The anger rose again, hot and consuming. "Don't touch me?" Sterling let out an incredulous laugh, looking at the horrified diners watching the scene. "I'm the one who pays so these legs don't rot. I pay for the massages, the creams, the surgeries, and you tell me not to touch you?" He turned towards Maria, pointing a trembling finger at her, accusing her as if she were a witch who had cast a spell. "Did you put these ideas in his head?" Sterling shouted, his voice breaking. "You made him believe it's normal. You played with his mind. That's psychological cruelty. Making an invalid believe he can run is torture." "He doesn't believe he can run, sir," Maria replied, still as a statue, with her gaze fixed on the unhinged man. "He knows he can walk. He has done it in his room. He has done it in the kitchen. He has done it while you were watching your stocks." Lies. Sterling's shout made the glasses on the adjacent table vibrate. Sterling grabbed the footrests of the wheelchair and adjusted them violently, trapping Charlie's feet in the resting position, the sick person's position. "Stay still," he ordered the boy who was trying to stretch his legs again. "You'll hurt yourself. Dr. Schneider clearly said your spine cannot support vertical load. You'll break your back and become paralyzed from the neck down. Is that what you want? Do you want to be a vegetable because of this woman?" Charlie started to cry. Not from physical pain, but from the terror his father's words injected into him. Sterling was using fear as a weapon, building a cage of words to lock his son in again. "Dad, it doesn't hurt anymore," Charlie sobbed, clinging to the armrests. "Maria healed me." That sentence was the final trigger. Maria healed me. For Sterling, it was like a slap in the face. "She is nobody. Maria didn't heal you. She is using you." Sterling grabbed the handles of the wheelchair and pulled sharply backward, turning the chair to move the boy away from the maid. The wheels squealed against the floor. Charlie stretched his arms towards Maria, shouting her name, a heartbreaking image of forced separation. "The show is over," Sterling roared to the general room, sweating with his tie undone. "My son is sick. He is confused, and this woman has taken advantage of his innocence." But the chair didn't move further. Sterling pushed, but something was stopping it. He looked down and saw that Charlie had engaged the manual wheel brakes. The boy, with his small hands gripping the brake levers with all his might, looked at his father with a new determination, a spark of fury he had never possessed before. "Take off the brakes," Sterling ordered, shaking the chair. "No!" Charlie screamed. Sterling wrestled with the chair, a pathetic struggle between a 90 kilograms businessman and a 5-year-old boy. The chair shook violently. It was a grotesque image. The father fighting against his son's will to be free. "You're stubborn, just like your mother," Sterling spat, completely losing his temper, mentioning his dead wife, a taboo that made the air turn even colder. "Will you obey?" Sterling crouched down to release the brakes himself, striking the boy's hands to make him let go of the levers. Charlie screamed in pain when his father hit his knuckles. At that moment, Maria stopped being a statue. She lunged forward and put her hand, the one still wearing the glove, onto Sterling's hand, stopping the abuse. "Don't touch him!" Maria growled in a voice so deep and authoritative that Sterling, by pure survival instinct, withdrew his hand, as if burned. Sterling looked at his own hand, where the maid's yellow rubber glove had touched him. He looked with absolute disgust, as if it had been smeared with excrement. "You touched me," Sterling whispered with wide eyes, incredulous at the audacity. A maid laid a hand on me. The denial was over. The war, the public humiliation, was beginning now. Sterling frantically wiped his hand on his $10,000 trousers, rubbing the fabric until he almost tore it, trying to remove the filth of contact with Maria. His face went from the red of anger to the pale of calculated indignation. If he couldn't control the boy by force, he would destroy the woman socially. He would crush her with the weight of his status. "Manager," Sterling shouted, turning on his heel like a general on the battlefield. "Manager, come here now." The manager, who had been hesitating between the tables, rushed over, pale and sweating. "Yes, Mr. Sterling. What is it?" "I want everyone to look at this," Sterling said, raising his voice so that even the last table in the back could hear him. He extended his arm, pointing at Maria, turning her into a carnival spectacle. "Look at this woman. Look at her well." Maria remained standing next to Charlie's chair. Her posture was humble, but her chin was high. She did not lower her gaze, although she felt the hundreds of eyes fixed on her wrinkled uniform and her single yellow glove. "This woman," Sterling continued, walking in circles around her like a shark, "cleans my toilets, scrubs my floors, takes out the rubbish from my house." Sterling paused theatrically, seeking approval from the rich audience of the restaurant. Some looked away, uncomfortable, but others, the most elitist, nodded slightly, infected by the classist speech. And with those same hands, Sterling lowered his voice to a venomous whisper. "She has been manipulating my son. She has been touching his skin. She has been risking his health. It's sanitary negligence. It's an attack on public health." He approached the manager, invading his space. "Do you allow people like this into your establishment? People with dirty uniforms, people who bring diseases from the street." Sterling pointed to the glove lying on the floor. "Look, that it's repugnant. I've paid a fortune for an exclusive membership here, not to share the air with domestic service who thinks she's a doctor." "Sir, she came in with the child." "We thought," the manager stammered. "You didn't think?" Sterling cut him off. "She is a danger. She is an uneducated ignoramus who thinks she knows more than the best neurologists in Europe." Sterling turned back to Maria, drilling his eyes into her with infinite contempt. "Tell them, Maria, tell all these gentlemen how much you studied. Did you finish primary school? Do you know how to read anything other than the labels on bleach?" Maria pressed her lips together. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of impotent rage. She could read. She read stories to Charlie every night. She read anatomy books she took out from the public library on Sundays, looking for exercises to strengthen atrophied muscles. But she said nothing. She knew any verbal defense would be used against her. "See?" Sterling mocked, opening his arms. "She has nothing to say. She is a brute, an opportunist looking to extort money from me when the boy falls and cracks his head." Sterling kicked the glove lying on the floor. The glove flew a few meters and landed near a jeweled lady who recoiled her feet with exaggerated disgust. "Get her out of here," Sterling ordered the manager with a glacial voice. "And I want the area where she stood disinfected. I don't want my son breathing the same air as her for one more second." Two security guards, large, uniformed men, appeared at the salon entrance. The manager gave them a nervous signal. "Miss, please, accompany us," said one of the guards, approaching Maria and taking her arm firmly. "No!" Charlie shouted from the chair. The boy tried to unbuckle his seatbelt, his fingers clumsy with distress. "Leave her. She is my mum." The silence that followed that sentence was sepulchral. Sterling froze. The word mum floated in the air, heavy and accusatory. His wife had died in childbirth. Charlie had never known her, but he had just called the maid mum. Sterling's humiliation was complete. It was no longer just a matter of hygiene or medicine. It was a matter of replacement. This woman had stolen his son's love. She had stolen his title. Sterling's face contracted into a grimace of pure hatred. "Did you hear that?" Sterling whispered, his voice broken. "She brainwashed him. She made him believe she is his mother. She is an emotional kidnapper." He walked towards Maria, ignoring the guards, and stood face to face with her, inches from her nose. "You crossed the line, Maria," Sterling said, trembling. "I will destroy you. I will make sure you never get a job in this city again. I will report you for parental alienation. You will starve." Maria, with the guard pulling her left arm, held the millionaire's gaze and then did the unthinkable. She smiled. It was a sad smile, full of pity. "You can take my job, mister." "Sterling," she said softly. "You can take my money. You can throw me onto the street like a dog, but there is one thing you can never buy, not with all the gold in your banks." "Oh, really?" Sterling challenged. "What is it?" Maria looked at Charlie, who was crying, stretching his arms towards her. "The reason he stands up," Maria said, "he doesn't stand up out of fear. like when he is with you. And that, boss, is something you don't understand. Blinded by fury at that truth that stripped him bare in front of everyone, Sterling raised his hand again, ready to hit her. Ready for anything, just to erase that compassionate smile from her face. "Get her out right now," Sterling howled. The guards dragged Maria towards the exit. She didn't physically resist, but she kept her head turned towards Charlie until the last second. "Up, Charlie," she yelled as they pushed her towards the doors. "Remember what we practiced. You are strong. Don't let them sit you down." The double doors closed behind her, silencing her voice. Sterling remained in the center of the room, breathing heavily, feeling victorious. He had eliminated the threat. He had restored order. He turned towards the wheelchair, expecting to see his son subdued, defeated, ready to be molded again in his image and likeness. He straightened his jacket, forced a tense smile for the spectators, and walked towards the boy. "It's over, son. The bad woman is gone. Now Dad will take care of you." But when he reached the chair, he stopped. The chair was empty. The seatbelt was unbuckled, hanging on the sides. Sterling looked down at the floor, feeling the world spin dizzyingly. There was no one in the chair. He slowly raised his head in terror and saw him 3 meters away, wobbling, his arms open, looking for balance. A small boy in a tuxedo was advancing step by step, moving away from his father, walking towards the closed doors through which the only person who believed in him had been taken. Charlie was walking, and this time he wouldn't stop. The defense of the substitute mother. The sound of Charlie's shoes against the marble was not a noise. It was an earthquake shaking the foundations of Sterling's world. Tap, tap, tap. Every step was a slap to his authority, a denial of his money, and living proof that he, the great magnate, knew nothing about his own blood. Sterling snapped out of his paralysis with a choked roar. He didn't run to hug his son. He ran to stop what he considered a catastrophe in slow motion. "Stop!" Sterling yelled, throwing himself forward. He reached the boy just as Charlie took his 5th step. Sterling didn't hold him. He seized him. His large hands wrapped around the boy's small waist and pulled him back roughly, lifting him off the floor so his feet would stop touching the ground, so he would stop walking, so he would stop defying the medical logic that had cost millions. "Let me go. I want to go with Maria," Charlie screamed, kicking in the air, hitting his father's expensive suit-armored chest with his small fists. "You're sick. You'll smash your hips," Sterling bellowed, shaking the boy in his desperation. "Don't you understand that you'll be disabled forever if you keep doing this stupid stuff?" At the restaurant entrance, chaos erupted. Maria, who was being pushed towards the street by the guards, heard Charlie's panicked cry. It was a sound that activated something primitive in her, something that cancelled out any fear of authority or jail. Maria spun on her heel with unexpected violence. With a dry, adrenaline-charged move, she slipped out of the grip of the guard on the right and shoved the one on the left against the doorframe. "Don't touch the child." Maria's scream was so heartbreaking that the jazz band musicians in the background stopped playing. Maria ran back to the center of the room. She didn't care that her white cap fell off or that her dark hair came loose, falling over her face. She ran like a wounded beast towards the man holding her son suspended in the air like a broken trophy. Sterling saw the maid coming and for a second felt real fear, not physical fear, but fear of the truth that woman carried. "Get away, you lunatic," Sterling yelled, backing away with Charlie in his arms, protecting the child as if Maria were a contagious virus. But Maria didn't stop until she was a meter away from him. She breathed heavily, her chest rising and falling forcefully, her black eyes fixed on his. "Put him down," she ordered. She didn't beg, she commanded. "Who do you think you are?" Sterling spat, his face red and the veins in his neck throbbing. "I'll call the police. I'll charge you with attempted homicide for forcing a disabled person to walk." "Put him down. And look at his legs," Maria insisted, pointing at the child's dangling limbs. "Look at them." Sterling involuntarily lowered his gaze. He expected to see purple, twisted legs, broken by unnatural effort. He expected to see proof of his correctness, but what he saw left him speechless. Charlie's legs weren't flaccid. They were tense. The calf muscles, though thin, were defined, marked by the tension of kicking. The child did not have the dead legs of a paraplegic. He had the furious legs of a boy who wants to run. "That's it, they are spasms," Sterling mumbled, looking for a logical, scientific explanation. "It's nervous reflex. It's the damage you've caused." "They are not spasms, you ignoramus," Maria said, taking another step, invading the millionaire's circle of power. "It is strength. It is muscle." Maria extended her arms towards Charlie. "Come, my love," she said, instantly softening her voice. Charlie, still in his father's arms, stretched towards her with such desperation that he almost fell from Sterling's hands. The child's rejection was so evident, so physical, that Sterling felt as if his heart had been ripped from his chest with cold pincers. Momentarily defeated by the emotional weight, Sterling lowered the boy, but he didn't let go. He kept him held by the arm like a jailer. "Explain this," Sterling said, his voice trembling with contained rage. "Right now, before I destroy your life, what did you do? Did you give him drugs? Steroids?" Maria wiped a tear from her cheek with the back of her bare hand, leaving a wet, dirty smudge on her face. She straightened up, regaining all her dignity despite the maid's uniform. "You ask what I did," Maria began, her voice echoing in the silent restaurant, where the millionaires listened, astonished. "I will tell you what I didn't do. I didn't take him to Switzerland. I didn't buy him $10,000 machines that rust in the garage. I didn't pay doctors who don't even look him in the face when they speak." Sterling gritted his teeth. "I paid for the best," he hissed. "You paid for silence and comfort," Maria shouted, interrupting him. "Your doctors touched Charlie's legs with latex gloves and cold thermometers. They looked at him through scanners and screens. They wrote impossible on a piece of paper and went to play golf with your money." Maria pointed to her own hands, one bare and the other still in the yellow cleaning glove. "I don't have degrees, Mr. Sterling. I have calluses. I touched those legs with my warm hands. I felt every tendon. I noticed they weren't dead. They were asleep. They were sad because their own father looked at them with disgust. I never looked at him with disgust." Sterling defended himself, although his voice wavered when he remembered how many times he had avoided looking at the child's atrophied legs. "I looked at him with pity. Which is worse?" Maria concluded. The woman knelt on the floor again, coming level with Charlie's eyes, ignoring the giant father looming over them. "Charlie," she said softly, "tell your dad what we do when he travels to New York." The boy, who had stopped crying upon feeling Maria's closeness, sniffled and looked at his father with a seriousness that frightened Sterling. "We play astronaut," the boy said. Sterling blinked, confused. "What?" "The gravity game," Maria explained, without taking her eyes off the boy. "Because on the moon, your legs weigh less." Sterling felt the floor shift. "Games? You're talking about games while I'm talking about medicine." "You're crazy," Sterling murmured. "You've been playing with him while I thought you were doing therapy." "Therapy hurts. Play heals," Maria replied, rising slowly. "You wanted a perfect son for your photos. I wanted a happy child who could chase a ball. That's the difference, boss. You invested money. I invested my life." Sterling let out a bitter, incredulous laugh. He ran his hands through his slicked back hair, messing up his perfect hairstyle on the verge of a nervous breakdown. "This is ridiculous," he exclaimed, addressing the restaurant audience as if seeking witnesses for a trial. "Listen to this. Playing astronaut. This woman is a quack, a neighborhood healer." He turned to Maria, his face transformed by the cynical suspicion of a man who had built his fortune by trusting no one. "Do you think I'm stupid?" Sterling said, approaching her threateningly. "Do you think I'm going to swallow this fairy tale of love and games? There's something else here. Do you want something?" Sterling pulled his checkbook from his inner jacket pocket with a quick, aggressive movement. He took out a gold pen and waved it in the air. "How much?" he asked in a cold voice. "How much do you want for the miracle?" "Huh? Is that it? You planned this for months. You trained the boy to take a few steps, risking his health just to put on this show in public and extort me." "Dad, don't intervene, Charlie." But Sterling ignored him. "Shut up, Carlos." Sterling scribbled frantically on the check. $10,000. $20,000. "Take it and get out and sign a paper saying it was all a trick, that the boy can't really walk, because if the shareholders see and then the boy goes back to the chair, my shares drop. I need to know the medical truth." Maria looked at the check Sterling was extending to her. It was more money than she would earn in 5 years cleaning toilets. She looked at it with a blood-chilling calmness. Then, with a slow movement, she took the check. Sterling smiled with cynical triumph. "I knew it. Everyone has a price, even saints in yellow gloves." But Maria didn't put the check away. She tore it in half, then into 4 pieces, and let the scraps fall to the floor like dirty confetti. "The secret is not a trick, Mr. Sterling," Maria said. She put her hand in her apron pocket and pulled something out. It wasn't a magic wand or a strange medicine. It was a notebook. A cheap spiral-bound school notebook, with worn covers stained with cooking oil and floor wax. "Here," she said, pushing the notebook against Sterling's chest. Sterling took it by reflex. "What is this junk?" "Open it. Read the page marked with the red clip." Sterling, moved by morbid curiosity, opened the notebook. His eyes scanned the page written in tight, round, simple handwriting, full of spelling mistakes but clear. Day 145. The boss is in London. Charlie cried a lot today. His tendons hurt. I put warm compresses with rosemary on him. I told him the story of the speedy rabbit. I massaged for 3 hours until he fell asleep. His toes moved at 2 a.m. He didn't see it. I did, thank God. Sterling turned the page, his hands starting to tremble. Day 180. The boss came back and yelled because dinner was cold. Charlie got scared, and his legs stiffened. Fear paralyzes him again. I have to be stronger. Today I held him standing against the bathroom wall for 10 seconds. He told me. He felt tall. He laughed. Sterling felt a lump in his throat. He read one more entry, the last one, asterisk. Yesterday the doctor came. I listened from behind the door. He told the boss that the spinal surgery was the only option, but it was very risky. The boss said, "Let's do it. I want to fix this now. I can't let them operate on him. I can't let them cut him open like a toad. Charlie is ready. Today he will walk, even if it costs me my job." Asterisk. Sterling closed the notebook. The paper felt heavy in his hands. He looked up and saw Maria with different eyes. He no longer saw the dirty maid. He saw a warrior who had been fighting a silent battle in his own house, under his very nose, while he was busy making money. "You were going to authorize the surgery tomorrow," Maria said. It wasn't a question. Sterling paled. "It's true. I have the papers in the car. Experimental surgery is dangerous," Sterling whispered, his voice losing its arrogance. "The doctors were wrong," Maria said. "Or maybe not. Maybe they saw a broken body, but I saw a child who just needed someone to believe in him, not to fix him." "How?" Sterling looked at his son, who was still standing, clinging to Maria's skirt, looking at him with fear. "Because you never enter the service room," Maria replied with brutal truth. "And because Charlie was afraid of disappointing you if he failed, he wanted to surprise you when he could run to you. But today you forced me." Sterling looked around. The restaurant was still silent, but it was no longer a silence of judgment towards the maid. It was a silence of judgment towards him. He realized he was clutching the notebook to his chest, as if it were a Bible. The reality of the miracle hit him. There was no magic. There was work. There were thousands of hours of nightly massages, of painful exercises, of secretly wiped tears, documented in that dirty notebook. "You hid my son from me." Sterling tried to regain his indignation, but it sounded hollow. "I gave you back your son," Maria corrected. "But it seems you prefer the wheelchair. It's easier to control, isn't it?" That sentence was the final blow. Sterling felt the anger return, but this time it was defensive anger, the anger of a man cornered by his own guilt. He could not accept that the maid was right. If she was right, he was the villain in his own son's story, and Sterling never lost. "That proves nothing," Sterling shouted, throwing the notebook violently to the floor. "A notebook with scribbles is not medicine. It's the fantasy of a lonely woman." Sterling pointed at Charlie. "If you can really walk, prove it," he challenged the child with a cruelty born of desperation. "Walk to me. Come here right now, if you are so strong." Maria tried to protest, but Charlie let go of her skirt. The boy looked at his father. His small eyes shone with an adult determination. "I'm coming, Dad," Charlie said in a clear voice. "But not because you command me." Charlie took a step into the empty space between the two adults. His legs visibly trembled. The effort was titanic. "Go!" Sterling shouted cruelly. "Let's see if it's true or just a circus trick." Charlie took the second step, then the third. He was alone in the middle of the marble floor, and then disaster struck the challenge. The disaster wasn't a loud noise, but a dry, painful crack. Charlie's right foot. That small foot, encased in the patent leather shoe Maria had tied with such love, slipped on an invisible patch of wax on the floor. The boy's body collapsed. He didn't fall like healthy children do, putting their hands out to protect themselves. He fell like a cut tree, stiff, heavy, hitting the floor with his shoulder and face. The sound of his head bouncing off the marble made 3 women at the adjacent table scream in horror. "Carlos!" Sterling's scream was a mixture of paternal terror and validated rage. The boy lay face down, motionless for a second that seemed eternal. Sterling lunged over him, but not to comfort him, but to confirm his own theory. He knelt violently, staining his thousands of dollars suit, and roughly turned the boy's body. "See? See? Damn it!" Sterling bellowed, looking at Maria with wide, crazed eyes, spitting saliva in his desperation. "You killed him! Look what you did!" "He has no reflexes, no strength." Charlie started to cry, a sharp, desperate cry, clutching his knee. "It hurts," the boy shrieked. "Of course it hurts," Sterling screamed, shaking him by the shoulders instead of hugging him. "I told you that you couldn't. I told you 1,000 times. You are a sick child, and that woman lied to you." Sterling jumped to his feet, charged with adrenaline, and pointed at the security guards who had been frozen at the entrance. "Arrest her!" Sterling roared, his finger pointing at Maria's chest like a pistol. "Call the police right now. I want charges for grievous bodily harm. Look at my son. He is lying on the floor because of you." Maria didn't back down, nor did she even look at the guards. Her eyes were fixed on Charlie, who was writhing on the floor. Her instinct screamed at her to run and lift him, to kiss his knee, to tell him, "Heal, heal, little tail of a frog." But she forced herself to stay still. She dug her nails into her palms until she hurt herself. She knew that if she lifted him now, if she treated him like a victim, Sterling would win. And if Sterling won, Charlie would go back to the chair forever. "Lift him," Sterling ordered Maria defiantly. "Go on, lift your mess, put him in the chair, and get out of my life before I kill you with my own hands." Maria took a deep breath. The air smelled of expensive perfume and fear. "No," she said. The word fell like a stone into a pond. Sterling blinked in disbelief. "What did you say?" "I said no," Maria repeated, raising her voice so the boy on the floor could hear her. "I am not going to lift him, and neither are you." Sterling moved towards her, raising his hand, palm open, ready for anything. The vein in his forehead was throbbing dangerously. "You dare disobey me with my son screaming in pain on the floor?" "He is not screaming in pain, Mr. Sterling," Maria yelled, finally breaking her composure, confronting him with the ferocity of a lioness mother. "He is screaming out of fear." "Fear of you!" Maria turned towards the boy, ignoring the father's physical threat. "Charlie," she called with a commanding, stern voice. "Stop crying." The boy, surprised by the severe tone of the woman who always pampered him, swallowed his cry and looked at her from the floor with eyes full of tears and confusion. "Did you break something?" Maria asked calmly. Charlie touched his knee, then moved his foot. He shook his head, scared. "No, I just bumped it." "Then stop acting like a baby and behave like the man you are," Maria said implacably. Sterling let out a hysterical laugh. "He's a 5-year-old invalid. He's not a man," he shouted, crouching down to grab the boy. "Come here, Dad will put you in your chair. If you touch him, you condemn him." Maria's shout was so powerful that Sterling stopped inches from the boy. Maria took a step towards the millionaire, shortening the distance, invading his vital space without fear. "If you lift him now, Mr. Sterling, if you teach him that every time he falls, Dad comes to rescue him because he is poor and invalid, then he will truly be disabled forever, not in his legs. Here." Maria touched her temple with her index finger. "You taught him to pity himself. I taught him to have courage. Choose right now what kind of father you are. The one who needs a sick child to feel useful, or the one who has the guts to watch his son suffer a little to become strong." Sterling looked at the woman, trembling with rage. He wanted to hit her. He wanted to destroy her, but he looked around. 50 high society people were watching him. If he hit her, it was the end of his career. If he lifted the boy, he confirmed he was weak. He was trapped by a maid in a dirty uniform. "Fine," Sterling hissed, straightening up and adjusting his jacket with a brusque, arrogant movement. "You want to play rough? Let's play rough." Sterling took 3 large steps back, moving away from the boy lying on the floor. He crossed his arms, adopting a cold, critical posture like a supreme judge. "Nobody touches him," Sterling ordered the general room. His voice was ice. "Not the waiters, not you, nobody." He looked at his son with an expression that was not love, but cruel challenge. "There's your chance, Carlos. Your nanny says you are a man. She says you can walk. She says I'm the bad one for looking after you." Sterling pointed to the floor with contempt. "Prove me wrong. Get up alone, without help, without holding onto the table, without her giving you her hand." The silence in the restaurant was absolute. Only the hum of the air conditioning could be heard. "And I warn you about one thing, Maria," Sterling added without looking at her, his eyes fixed on the boy. "If he doesn't get up in 1 minute, if he stays there lying like what he is, I swear to my wife's memory, I will have you put in jail for child abuse. I'll take away even your surname." "Agreed," Maria said instantly. She knelt down, but far from the boy. She put her hands on her own thighs. "Come on, my love," she whispered, her voice cracking but full of unshakable faith. "Show the boss who's in charge." "The acid test." Charlie looked around from floor level. The world seemed gigantic from down there. The chair legs were like mahogany trees. The adults' shoes were black, shining walls. And up there, far, far away, was his father's face, a mask of disappointment and doubt. The boy felt the cold of the marble on his belly. His knee hurt. His shoulder hurt. He wanted to stay there. He wanted someone to pick him up. That's what always happened. He would cry, and someone would put him in the soft chair. It was easy. It was safe. He looked at Maria. She wasn't looking at him with pity. She was slightly grimacing, pressing her lips together, sending him strength with her eyes. She had said they were astronauts. Astronauts don't cry when they fall on the moon. Charlie placed his palms on the floor. They were small, soft hands, the hands of a rich boy who has never touched the earth, but he pushed. Ugh! He gasped with effort. His torso lifted. Sterling grimaced in disgust, expecting imminent failure. He can't. It's useless, Sterling muttered to himself, seeking validation. His center of gravity is wrong. His lower back muscles can't hold. But Charlie didn't give up. He dragged one knee forward, then the other. He was on all fours, panting like a wounded puppy. The tuxedo was stained with dust. The bow tie hung askew. "Go, Carlos!" A man shouted from a table in the back. It was the same man who had stood up earlier. "Shut up," Sterling snapped, turning his head. "Don't interfere." Charlie tried to put one foot flat on the floor. His leg trembled violently like a leaf in the wind. The thigh muscle contracted. The effort was visibly superhuman. He pushed himself up. He managed to lift his knees off the floor, ending up in a squat, wobbling dangerously. "He's going to fall," Sterling said, in an almost triumphant tone. "Look at that angle. He's going to fall on his face." Maria closed her eyes and prayed silently. "Don't fall, please, my boy. Dig your heels in, like we practiced. Heel, toe, core strength." Charlie stretched his arms out to the sides, seeking invisible balance. He straightened up slowly. His legs, those legs that according to medical records were worth 0, stretched out. His knees locked. The boy was standing. He was dirty, disheveled, and crying, but he was standing. A collective sigh swept through the room. "Impossible," Sterling whispered. He took a step back as if the boy were a ghost. Charlie took a deep breath, sniffling loudly. He looked at his father. "Am I done?" the boy asked in a trembling voice. "Am I a man now, Dad?" Sterling felt a punch in his stomach. The question was so innocent and yet so devastating that it left him breathless, but his pride was a beast hard to kill. "Standing isn't walking," Sterling said in a hoarse voice, moving the goalposts once more, cruel and implacable. "Anyone can stand for a second before falling." Sterling extended his arms, but not with love. He extended them like a target, like a distant, unattainable finish line. "Come here," Sterling said. "If you can really walk, come and hug me. I am 5 steps away. 5 simple steps. If you reach me, I'll believe. If you fall, we go back to the chair, and Maria goes to jail." It was a brutal ultimatum. Sterling was betting the woman's freedom against his son's motor skills. Maria opened her eyes, looking at Sterling with pure hatred. "That's blackmail," she shouted. "It's reality," Sterling replied without looking at her. "In the real world, results matter. Do you trust your work, Maria? Then shut up and let him walk." Charlie looked at Maria. She nodded, though she was openly crying. "Now go, my love," she whispered. "Go get your legs." Charlie looked at his father. Those open arms seemed enormous. The boy took the first step. Clack. The shoe hit the ground firmly. He took the second. He wobbled to the left. Sterling didn't move to help him. The boy corrected his course alone, flailing his arms. He took the third step. He was halfway there. His face was red from the effort. Sweat streamed down his forehead. He took the 4th step. He was close now. He could see the gold buttons on his father's jacket. He could smell his expensive cologne. Sterling felt his heart hammering against his chest. He was doing it. He was doing it. A part of him, the small, hidden part that was still human, wanted to run and grab him. But the dominant part, the arrogant millionaire, needed to maintain posture until the end. Charlie lifted his foot for the 5th and final step. He was smiling. He was going to reach him. He was going to hug his dad, and everything would be all right. But then Sterling made the final mistake. Seeing that the boy was going to make it, seeing that the maid was right and he was wrong, Sterling lowered his arms by an inch. His expression changed. There was no pride in his eyes. There was fear. Fear of having to apologize. Fear of admitting he was a bad father. Charlie saw that look. He saw the coldness. He saw that even if he reached him, nothing would change. His father was still a statue of ice. The boy stopped his foot in the air. He did not complete the step towards his father. He lowered his foot, but not forward. He lowered it to the side. Sterling blinked, confused. "What are you doing?" Sterling asked. "I'm here. Come on, one step left." Charlie shook his head slowly. "You don't want to see me walk," the boy said. His voice sounded old, wise, terrible. "You want to be right." And with a dignity no 5-year old should have to show, Charlie turned on his heel. He turned his back on the open arms of his millionaire father. He turned his back on the inheritance. He turned his back on the approval he had sought his entire short life. "Carlos!" Sterling shouted, feeling real panic for the first time. "Where are you going? Come back here." Charlie didn't answer. He fixed his gaze on the only person kneeling, with arms truly open, waiting without conditions. He began to walk towards Maria. 1, 2, 3 quick, sure steps. Sterling stood frozen, with his arms outstretched, hugging empty air, watching as his son, the disabled boy who couldn't walk, walked perfectly, moving away from him towards the man who cleaned his toilets, turning his back on him. The stumble. The silence in the restaurant was broken by the dry sound of Sterling's leather soles hitting the floor. He couldn't allow it. He couldn't allow his son, his blood, his property, to walk towards the woman who cleaned his toilets, turning her back on him, the owner of the empire. "No!" Sterling roared, losing the last vestiges of his social composure. Sterling lunged forward, not with the grace of a concerned father, but with the desperate clumsiness of a man watching his wallet fall off a cliff. He ran the 3 meters separating him from Charlie and placed himself in his path, blocking Maria's view with his massive body. He planted himself like a concrete wall in front of the boy, panting, sweating, with wild eyes. Charlie stopped dead so as not to crash into his father's legs. The boy wobbled, his small muscles tensing to slow his momentum. "Where do you think you're going?" Sterling asked, crouching down until he was face to face with the boy, trapping him in his shadow. "Are you going with her? With the maid? Are you going to despise your father for a woman who smells of bleach?" "Let me pass," Charlie said. His voice was small, but it didn't tremble. "You are confused." Sterling grabbed the boy's shoulders tightly, shaking him. "Look at yourself. You're sweating. You're suffering. Your legs are shaking, Carlos. You're going to fall any second." Sterling glanced back at the empty wheelchair and then back at the boy with a mixture of pleading and threat. "Sit down now. I'll buy you whatever you want. Do you want the new video game? Do you want to go to Disneyland tomorrow? Do you want a pony? I'll buy you 10 ponies. But sit in the chair and stop humiliating me." Charlie looked at his father. His eyes scanned the millionaire's sweaty, reddened face. "Maria doesn't buy me things," the boy said with devastating simplicity. "She teaches me how to use what I already have." Sterling felt his blood boil. The comparison was an intolerable insult. "She is not your mother," Sterling shouted, tightening his grip on the boy's shoulders, digging his fingers into the tuxedo fabric. "She is an employee. I pay her. If I stop paying her, she disappears. She doesn't love you. She wants my money. Let me go," Charlie screamed, trying to break free from the iron grip. In the scuffle, it happened. Sterling, blind with rage, pushed the boy backwards, trying to force him back towards the wheelchair. It was an instinctive, brutal shove. Charlie's legs, fatigued by the titanic effort of the last few minutes, could not withstand the push. The boy's right ankle bent. Charlie let out a choked cry, and his body slumped to the left side. "He's falling!" a woman shouted from table 3, putting her hands over her mouth. Sterling watched his son fall. Time seemed to stop. In his sick mind, he saw victory. If the boy fell, he was right. If he fell, he needed the chair. If he needed the chair, he needed the rich father. "I told you so," Sterling exclaimed, even before the boy touched the ground, extending his hands, not to catch him, but to point at the failure. "I told you that you couldn't. You are weak." Charlie hit the floor with his knee and hand. The impact sounded painful. He ended up on all fours with his head bowed. Breathing heavily, Sterling straightened up, regaining his height, regaining his power. He looked at Maria over the fallen boy's shoulder with a triumphant and cruel smile. "There's your miracle, Maria," Sterling said in a poisonous voice. "On the floor where it belongs, where it always has been, until you filled his head with stupid fantasies." Sterling turned to the crowd in the restaurant, opening his arms like a circus ringmaster who has just demonstrated a failed trick. "Do you see?" he said to the stunned diners. "It's simple physics. Weak bones, atrophied muscles. It's not cruelty, sirs. It's reality. My son needs care, not adventures. He needs his chair." He crouched down towards Charlie, adopting a falsely compassionate, cloying, and toxic tone of voice. "Come on, champ. The game is over. Dad will help you. Let's go to the chair, and we'll go home. We'll fire this woman, and we'll find a real nurse, one who knows her place." Sterling put his hands under the boy's armpits to lift him like dead weight. He expected a flaccid, defeated, crying body. He expected habitual submission. But when he pulled up, he met resistance. The boy was not limp. The boy was rigid. His hands were glued to the marble floor, his fingers spread like claws anchoring to the ground. "No!" Charlie grunted between his teeth. "Don't make this harder," Sterling whispered in the boy's ear, gritting his teeth. "Get up and walk to the chair, or I swear I told you no." Charlie's scream was not that of a child. It was a roar that came from the depths, from the place where the pain of years of being looked at as a broken object is kept. With a sudden movement, Charlie shook his body and pulled free from his father's hands. The momentum caused Sterling, who was in an unstable squatting position, to lose his balance and fall seated on his backside onto the polished floor. The final stumble hadn't been the boy's, it had been the father's. Sterling sat on the floor with his legs spread ridiculously, looking with absolute disbelief as his son, the disabled boy, refused to be rescued. From the other side of the room, Maria, who had held her breath and the urge to run and kill the boss, let out the air. She didn't shout instructions. She didn't say get up. She just put her hand on her heart and nodded. She knew this was the moment the child stopped being a patient and became a survivor. Charlie, still on the floor, lifted his head. His forehead was dirty with dust. A tear hung from his nose, but his eyes were pure fire. He looked at his father lying on the floor in front of him. "You want me to fall?" Charlie asked, panting. "Because if I walk, you can't boss me around anymore." Charlie's sentence hung in the air, heavier than any insult. Sterling, from the floor, felt the impact of the truth like a physical kick. He tried to get up quickly, to regain his dignity, but the Italian suit was slippery, and his movements were clumsy. While the father struggled with his own shame, the son struggled with gravity. Charlie didn't ask for help. He put one leg forward, the bad leg, the one that hurt the most. He placed the sole of his shoe completely flat on the marble. He gritted his teeth until his gums ached. "Ah!" He groaned with effort, pushing the floor with his thin arms. The entire restaurant held its breath. No one ate. No one spoke. The waiters were frozen with trays in their hands. It was a biblical battle. David versus Goliath. But Goliath was his own anatomy in fear. Charlie propelled himself. His knee trembled violently, dancing under the weight of his body. It seemed like it was going to give way, that the bone was going to break. "You'll break yourself! Stop!" Sterling shouted, standing up, trying to intervene again. "Don't touch him!" 3 customers roared simultaneously from different tables. The crowd had chosen sides. Sterling stopped, frightened by the hostility of the crowd. Charlie stretched his legs, locked his knees, straightened up, wiped his nose with the back of his hand, cleaning off the snot and tears, leaving a dark smudge on his pale face. He adjusted his tuxedo jacket with a gesture that ironically imitated the arrogant gesture his father always made. But in him, it wasn't arrogance, it was dignity. He looked his father in the eyes. Now that Sterling was standing, the height difference was huge, but the moral difference had been inverted. The boy looked like a giant. "The chair is yours, Dad," Charlie said, pointing to the chrome apparatus with infinite contempt. "You need it more than I do." Sterling opened his mouth, mumbling. "What are you saying?" I am your father. I paid. You paid for me to sit down," Charlie said. "Maria paid for me to get up." The boy put his hand in his small trouser pocket. He pulled out something that jingled. It was a gold watch, a gaudy gift Sterling had given him the previous week to compensate for not being there for his birthday. Charlie looked at the watch. "You said this was worth a lot of money," the boy said. $5,000, Sterling replied automatically, not understanding what was happening. "It's solid gold." "It weighs a lot," Charlie said, and with chilling calmness, he opened his hand. The gold watch fell to the floor. The crystal shattered with a sharp crack upon impact with the marble. Sterling looked at the broken watch as if it were his own heart. "What have you done?" he shrieked. "I don't want things that weigh a lot anymore," Charlie said. "I want to walk light." The boy turned his head towards Maria. She was there, at the end of the aisle, improvised between the tables, a blue and white figure in the middle of a sea of dark suits. She was crying silently with a smile that illuminated the room more than the crystal chandeliers on the ceiling. Charlie took a step towards her. Sterling took a step to block him again, blinded by the desperation of losing control. "You are not going with her," Sterling growled. "She is a maid. She has nothing. She lives in a 3-square-meter room. She has no future. If you go with her, I'll disinherit you. Do you hear me, Carlos? I'll take everything away. The money, the house, the toys. You will be on the street with that freeloader." Charlie stopped. He slowly turned his head towards his father. "Dad," he said softly. "What?" Sterling stopped, expecting surrender, expecting the threat of money to work as it always did. With his business partners. "She has my legs," Charlie said, "and you only have my chair." The boy turned back towards Maria and resumed his march. 1, 2, 3 steps. The rhythm was constant. Now tap, tap, tap. It was no longer the walk of a learning child. It was the march of a soldier returning home. Sterling stood there in the middle of the restaurant, surrounded by his wealth, his broken watch, and his state-of-the-art empty wheelchair. He reached a hand towards his son's back, his fingers trembling, wanting to grab him, wanting to bring him back to the safety of invalidity. "Carlos," Sterling whispered, his voice broken. "Son, please, you scare me. You're going to fall." But no one listened to him anymore. All eyes were on the boy crossing the chasm between cold wealth and loving poverty. Charlie sped up. His legs gained confidence with every meter. The distance was closing. Maria knelt on the floor, opening her arms as wide as the whole world, preparing to receive the impact of the miracle she herself had forged with her tired hands. The boy started to trot, a clumsy, ungainly trot. Beautiful. "Maria!" Charlie shouted, with a joy that broke the crystals of protocol. Sterling closed his eyes, unable to see the end of his reign. The emotional climax, the space between the running boy and the kneeling woman, closed in seconds. But for Sterling, those seconds were hours of torture. He saw his son move with a freedom he could never have bought him, not with all his money. He saw how Charlie's feet, once clumsy and dragged, hit the floor with a vital urgency. It wasn't an elegant walk, it was a messy trot, his arms flailing in the air. But it was the most beautiful and destructive movement Sterling had ever witnessed. "Careful!" Sterling shouted. A last pathetic attempt to exert control, to inject fear where only courage existed now. "You'll kill yourself." But Charlie didn't listen. His eyes were fixed on the safe harbor. Maria, with her dirty apron and her knees jammed into the hard floor, opened her arms even wider, preparing for the impact, like someone awaiting an avalanche. The collision was brutal and tender at the same time. Charlie didn't slow down. He launched himself against Maria's chest, with all the speed his small legs allowed. The impact sent Maria backwards, sitting down hard on her heels, letting out a hoarse groan, an oof that was heard throughout the room. But she didn't let go. Her arms closed around the small body like a steel trap, holding him, securing him, merging him with her. "I've got you," Maria shouted, her voice choked with tears, her face buried in the boy's shoulder. "I've got you, my life. I've got you." The boy clung to her neck with desperate strength. His small fingers dug into the blue fabric of the uniform, wrinkling it, pulling at it as if wanting to get inside her skin. "I walked, Maria, I walked," Charlie shrieked, his voice breaking between hysterical sobs of joy. "I made it. I'm an astronaut." Sterling stood 3 meters away, his hand still extended into the void. He felt a sudden coldness in his chest, a black hole where his pride used to be. The scene before him was a Renaissance painting of pure love, and he was not in the painting. He was the spectator who had paid for the ticket, but didn't understand the work. The restaurant erupted. It wasn't polite opera applause. It was a visceral reaction. The woman at table 3 who had shouted before, stood up crying openly, holding a napkin to her mouth. The man who had tried to defend Charlie banged his fist on the table in triumph. "Bravo!" someone shouted from the back, but in the center of the circle, the trio, the substitute mother, the miracle boy, and the ghost father, lived their own reality. Sterling took a hesitant step towards them. His Italian-soled shoes squeaked on the floor, an annoying sound that made Maria look up. She didn't let go of the boy. On the contrary, she placed one hand on Charlie's nape, protecting his head, and looked at Sterling with a mixture of defiance and infinite pity. "Let go," Sterling whispered. His voice came out without strength, without authority. It was the plea of a beggar. "He is my son. Leave me. Let me hug him." Maria didn't move. Charlie didn't turn around either. The boy kept his face hidden in the maid's neck, breathing in the smell of cheap soap and the sweat of work, the only smell he associated with safety. "He doesn't want to hug the bank, Mr. Sterling," Maria said softly, but with a necessary cruelty. "He wants to hug his mum." The word mum hit Sterling like a sledgehammer. "You are not his mother," Sterling babbled. His eyes full of tears he refused to let fall. "You are the service. I pay you." I bought those clothes you're wearing." "You bought the clothes," Maria replied, stroking Charlie's sweaty hair. "But you didn't buy what's inside." Charlie slowly raised his head. His face was red, stained with tears and snot, but it shone. He turned slightly to look at his father. Sterling waited, holding his breath, hoping the blood tie would be stronger than the bond of care. He hoped the boy would reach out his hand to him. "Dad," Charlie said. "Yes, son, I'm here." Sterling took a desperate step forward, falling to his knees to be at the boy's level, not caring about his tailored trousers. "Come to Dad. Let's go home. I'll buy you another watch. I'll buy you a real car. Whatever you want." Charlie looked at his kneeling father. He looked at the empty hands of Sterling, those hands that were always busy with phones, contracts, and sports car steering wheels. "My legs hurt, Dad," Charlie said. "I know." Sterling nodded frantically. "That's why you need the chair. Come, I'll take you. I'll carry you. Dad will carry you." Sterling extended his arms to take the boy. Charlie shook his head and snuggled back against Maria's chest. "I don't want you to carry me," the boy murmured against the uniform. "I want Maria to heal me. She has magic hands." "Yours are cold." Sterling froze with his arms open in the air, rejected in the most absolute and definitive way possible. "Yours are cold." The sentence pierced him. He looked at his own hands. They were perfect. Manicured, callus-free hands that signed cheques. Hands that had never massaged an atrophied leg for 3 hours in the early morning. Useless hands for loving. The restaurant manager cautiously approached, holding a glass of water, but stopped when he saw the expression on the millionaire's face. It was the face of a man, watching his mansion burn down with him inside. Maria, seeing the boy trembling from the physical exertion following the adrenaline, began to massage his calves right there on the restaurant floor. Her movements were expert, fast, rhythmic. "Breathe, my love," she whispered to him. "Inhale, exhale. Pain is good. Pain means the muscles are awake. Do you feel the heat?" "Yes," Charlie sighed, closing his eyes, completely ignoring his father's presence a meter away. Sterling watched the scene, saw the intimacy, saw the technique, saw how Maria knew exactly which point to press to relieve the cramp. He realized with growing horror that he knew nothing about his son's anatomy. He didn't know where it hurt him. He didn't know what brought relief. He was a stranger, a rich stranger, who paid the bills. The people around started to murmur. The comments reached Sterling's ears like stingers. "Poor child. Good thing he has the nanny. Did you see how the father pushed him? Money doesn't buy affection. Look at that." Sterling felt the air escape him. Public shame was unbearable, but private pain was worse. He got up, stumbling like a drunkard. He needed to flee. He needed to hide. Or he needed to destroy something. He looked around for a point of support, something familiar, and his eyes landed on the only thing that belonged to him in that room, the wheelchair, the bankruptcy of ego. The wheelchair was there, about 5 meters away, lonely, gleaming, obscenely high-tech. It was an ultralight carbon fiber chair imported from Germany. Sterling remembered the day he bought it. He had felt pride the best for my son, he had thought. Now, seeing it empty under the light of the chandeliers, the chair looked like a torture throne. It looked like a rolling coffin. Sterling walked towards it, moving like a sleepwalker. People parted for him, not out of respect, but out of fear of the broken, dark energy emanating from him. He reached the chair and placed a hand on the black leather backrest. The leather was cold. $12,000, Sterling whispered to himself. His voice was a broken thread. $1,000 so he wouldn't walk. The realization crashed down on him like a slab of concrete. He hadn't bought the chair to help Charlie. He had bought it to silence the problem. A chair was easy. A child in a chair stays where you put him. A child in a chair doesn't run, doesn't fall, doesn't bother at meetings, doesn't demand physical time. The chair was his substitute. Sterling clenched his fist on the backrest until his knuckles turned white. "Damn it!" he suddenly shouted, and with a violent movement, he kicked the chair. The wheelchair shot out, rolling uncontrollably until it hit a column with a metallic crash that startled everyone present. One wheel spun in the air, an accusing, whirring sound in the sepulchral silence. "No!" Sterling brought his hands to his head, grabbing his hair, pulling it with rage. "I am useless!" He screamed at the restaurant ceiling, not caring who was watching anymore. "I am trash." The great businessman, the Iron Man, collapsed. His healthy, strong legs gave way under the weight of his conscience. He fell to his knees on the floor, hitting it hard, but he didn't feel the physical pain. "I told him he couldn't," Sterling sobbed, punching the floor with his closed fist. "I told him he was a cripple. I cut his wings." Sterling's cry was ugly. It wasn't a cinematic cry. It was a hoarse howl full of snot and saliva, the sound of an animal realizing it had been eating its own tail. From his position on the floor, embracing the boy, Maria looked up. She saw the destroyed boss. She saw the arrogant man reduced to a scared child. Charlie looked at him too. The boy stopped receiving the massage and straightened up, looking at his father with curiosity. He had never seen Dad cry. Dad was stone. "Dad is broken?" Charlie asked. Maria looked at Sterling, then at the boy. "Yes, my love," Maria said softly. His heart broke, and that hurts more than legs. Sterling, kneeling a few meters away, raised his face, bathed in tears. The mascara of his status had run. He looked at Maria through the fog of his crying. He no longer saw her as an enemy. He saw her as a giant. She had done what he, with all his millions, hadn't had the courage to do. "Believe. Forgive me," Sterling croaked. The word scraped his throat. He had never used it in his adult life. He crawled on his knees. He didn't stand up to walk to them. He crawled. He dragged his $10,000 suit across the dirty floor, humbling himself voluntarily, lowering himself to the level of the floor, to the level of play, to the level of truth. "Maria," Sterling pleaded, extending a trembling hand towards her, but not daring to touch her. "Don't leave me alone. Don't take my son away. I am an idiot. I am blind." He reached where they were. He stopped in front of Charlie's patent leather shoes and Maria's knees. He lowered his head until it touched the floor with his forehead, in a posture of total submission. "Teach me," Sterling sobbed against the marble. "Please, Maria, teach me how to be a father. I don't know how. I only know how to sign checks. Teach me how to play astronaut." The silence in the restaurant was dense, almost sacred. No one dared to breathe. They were witnessing the death of an ego and the birth of a man. Charlie looked at the woman holding him. "Mum?" the boy asked, seeking permission. "Can I touch him?" Maria, her eyes full of tears, nodded slowly. "He needs you now, Charlie," she said. "He is the one who can't walk." Charlie gently let go of Maria's embrace, held himself up on his trembling legs. He took a small step towards his father's prostrate figure. The boy placed his small hand on Sterling's head, on the slicked back, expensive hair. "Up, Dad," Charlie said in a firm voice. "I'll help you. It's easy. Heel, toe." Sterling raised his head when he felt his son's touch. He saw the small hand offering him help. He saw the role reversal. The disabled boy was lifting the strong one. "Carlos." Sterling grabbed his son's hand, not with force, but with reverential delicacy, as if touching sacred glass. He kissed the boy's knuckles, wetting them with his tears. "Heel, toe," Sterling repeated, laughing and crying at the same time, a laugh of a redeemed madman. "Heel, toe." Maria leaned forward. She didn't stay out of it. She placed her hand, the rough hand of a worker, on Sterling's shoulder. "Stand up, mister." "Sterling," she said, and her tone was no longer that of a maid, it was that of an equal. "We have work to do. Charlie's legs need a father, not a rug." Sterling nodded, sniffling. "Yes, yes." He wiped his face with the sleeve of his jacket, ruining the fabric forever, and he didn't care. "I will learn, I swear. I'm going to throw that chair in the river." He stood up, staggering, leaning on Maria's shoulder and Charlie's hand. The three formed a strange and perfect triangle in the middle of the luxury restaurant. A broken millionaire, a queen maid, and an astronaut boy. "Shall we go?" Charlie asked, looking at the door. Sterling looked at the diners who were watching them. He no longer cared what people would say. He felt light, poor in ego, and truly rich. "We're going," Sterling said, but not to the car. He looked at Maria. "Do you think we can walk to the park on the corner?" Maria smiled, a smile that promised a different future. "If we go slowly, boss, we'll reach the moon, redemption, and justice." The trio advanced towards the restaurant exit. It wasn't a fast walk. It was a slow, rhythmic, painful process. Charlie was in the middle, his small hands clinging to Maria's left hand and Sterling's right hand. Every step was a victory, but also a reminder of the fragility of the moment. The diners, who minutes before had been severe judges or morbid spectators, now parted in silence. Some stood up. There was a strange reverence in the air, the respect given to survivors of a catastrophe. Sterling walked with his head held high, but not with his former arrogance. His face was swollen from crying, his tie hung undone, and his designer suit had grass stains on the knees. He had never looked so disheveled. And yet, he had never looked so much like a man. "Sir, Mr. Sterling," the manager's shrill voice broke the trance. The man ran after them, pushing the carbon fiber wheelchair he had rescued from the column against which Sterling had crashed it. One of the small front wheels was bent and vibrated frantically against the floor. "You're forgetting this," the manager panted, blocking the group's path at the glass door. "The chair costs a fortune. You can't leave it here." Sterling stopped. Charlie also braked, looking at the apparatus with instinctive fear. It was his cage, the shining cage. Sterling gently released his son's hand to face the manager. He looked at the chair, then at the man. "We are not forgetting it," Sterling said. His voice was calm, lacking the previous fury, but firm as a rock. "We are abandoning it." "But sir, it has a dent, but it can be fixed," the manager insisted, not understanding anything, worried about inventory and scandal. "If you leave it here, I'll have to charge you for storage or send it to you." Sterling put his hand in the inner pocket of his jacket, pulled out the black leather wallet, extracted a wad of bills, didn't even count them, and stuffed them into the manager's shirt pocket with a brusque movement. "Donate it," Sterling said. "Or what, I don't care, but if that thing ever crosses the door of my house again, I'll buy this building just to demolish it. Understood?" The manager swallowed, touching the bulge of bills on his chest. "Understood, sir." Sterling turned to his son. Charlie looked at him with wide eyes. "Really, Dad?" the boy asked. "I don't need it anymore." Sterling crouched down once more. He wiped a smudge of dirt from the child's cheek with his own thumb. "Your legs will get tired, champ," Sterling said. "They will hurt, and when that happens, I will carry you, or Maria will carry you. But that chair will never touch your arse again in your life. It's a gentleman's promise." Charlie smiled, showing his teeth, a smile that lit up the lobby. "Astronaut's promise," the child corrected. "Astronaut's promise," Sterling repeated, sealing the pact. They pushed the glass doors and stepped out onto the street. The evening air hit them. The sun was setting, painting the city a warm orange. The noise of the traffic, the horns, the people walking, everything seemed new. For Charlie, who had always seen the world from waist height, standing on the pavement, feeling the wind on his face at his own level was an adventure. A huge, gleaming black limousine was parked right in front in the loading zone. Sebastian, the lifelong chauffeur, a serious older man, was leaning against the bonnet checking his phone. Seeing his boss come out, he put his mobile away and ran to open the back door. "Mr. Sterling," Sebastian stopped dead when he saw his boss's state, and, above all, when he saw the boy standing. "Sir, what happened? Do you need to go to the hospital? Where is the boy's chair?" Sebastian looked at Maria with suspicion, noticing that she was holding the boss's hand. His training told him he should intervene. Service staff don't touch the owners, but the group's energy stopped him. Sterling looked at the car, that armored, soundproofed, air-conditioned car. The car where he had spent hours ignoring his son while talking business on the phone. "Close the door, Sebastian," Sterling said. "Sir." The chauffeur blinked. "We have the booking for the photo shoot in 20 minutes. The photographer is waiting." "Cancel the photo shoot," Sterling ordered. "Cancel the magazine. Cancel tomorrow's meeting and the dinner with the Japanese investors." "But sir, the Japanese, it's the contract of the year." Sebastian was starting to panic. "Tell them my son learned to walk today," Sterling said, looking at Charlie with a pride that almost hurt his chest. "Tell them that's more important than their damn earnings. And if they don't understand, I don't want to do business with them." Sebastian stood with his mouth open. Never in 20 years of service had he heard Sterling cancel a deal for nothing, much less for family. "So, home, sir?" the chauffeur asked, dubiously. Sterling looked at Maria. She was breathing deeply, enjoying the fresh air after the suffocation of the restaurant. "No," Sterling said. "Sebastian, take the car, take the afternoon off, go with your family, and you too." Sebastian looked at the busy street. "How are you going back? The child can't. The child is going to walk," Maria interrupted, speaking for the first time. Her voice was calm, in command of the situation. "As far as his legs take him, and then we rest, and then we walk some more." Sterling nodded. "You heard the boss, Sebastian? Get out of here." The chauffeur, still stunned, nodded, got into the car, and drove off, taking with him the last vestige of the old, rigid life. The three of them were left alone on the pavement. People passed by quickly, ignoring the silent drama unfolding on that corner. Sterling turned to Maria. Now that the adrenaline was subsiding, the reality of what he had done, of how he had treated her, crashed down on him. Shame burned his face. Maria, Sterling began. He struggled to meet her eyes. He looked at his own shoes. What I said inside, what I did, I have no forgiveness. I was an animal. I was worse than an animal. Maria didn't answer immediately. She took off the white apron that was soiled from rolling on the floor, folded it carefully, and put it in her bag. That gesture marked the end of her shift, the end of her role as a submissive maid. "You were afraid, Mr. Sterling," she finally said. "Fear makes us monsters. I was also afraid many nights when Charlie screamed in pain, and I didn't know if what I was doing was right or if I was breaking him more. But you didn't give up," Sterling said, looking up. I discarded him. I paid others to look after him because I didn't have the courage to watch him suffer." Sterling took a step towards her. "You're fired," he suddenly said. Charlie, who was distracted looking at a pigeon, turned his head sharply. "No!" the boy screamed. "Dad, no!" Maria didn't flinch. She kept her gaze fixed on Sterling, waiting. She knew that man was no longer the same one who had entered the restaurant. "You're fired as a domestic employee," Sterling continued, his voice trembling slightly. "I don't want you to ever clean a toilet in my house again. I don't want you to ever wear those yellow gloves again. Your hands are not for rubbish." Sterling took Maria's right hand, the rough, strong, bare hand. "I'm hiring you again, but not as a maid." "Then as what?" Maria asked, raising an eyebrow. Defiant, but with a glimmer of curiosity in her eyes. Sterling searched for the word. There was no job title for what she was. Mother was a biological title she had earned in practice. House manager sounded cold. "I'm hiring you as the ultimate authority over Carlos. You decide what he eats, you decide when he sleeps, you decide if he goes to the doctor or if he goes to the park. And I will be your assistant." Sterling squeezed her hand. "I want you to teach me what's in that notebook, Maria. I want to read every page. I want to learn how to do the massages. I want to make up for lost time. I'll pay you triple. I'll give you insurance, holidays, whatever you want. But, please, don't leave. Teach us how to be a family." Maria looked at the powerful man asking her for help. She saw the sincerity in his desperation. Then she looked at Charlie, who was waiting for the answer, holding his breath. Maria smiled. It was a wide, radiant smile that took 10 years off her. "We'll discuss the salary later, boss," she said. "But I warn you about one thing. I am very demanding. If you skip an astronaut game session, I'll fire you." Sterling let out a laugh, a real, liberating laugh. "Deal," Charlie clapped, jumping on his unstable feet. "Great," he shouted. "Now let's go to the moon." "To the moon." Maria nodded. The formalities were dropped. Sterling took off his suit jacket and hung it over his shoulder, loosening his tie until he took it off and put it in his pocket. He rolled up his white shirt sleeves. Maria let her hair down, letting the dark mane fall over her shoulders, hiding the severity of the uniform. "Which way?" Sterling asked. Charlie pointed to the park visible at the end of the avenue, a patch of green amidst the gray of the concrete. "There's grass there." They began to walk. It wasn't an easy walk. Charlie stumbled at 10 meters. His legs got tangled, and he almost fell flat on his face. Sterling reacted by instinct, throwing his hands out to grab him, panic shining in his eyes for a second. "Careful!" he exclaimed, but Maria placed a hand on Sterling's chest, stopping him. "Wait," she whispered. "Let him." Charlie didn't fall completely. He put his hands on the floor, pushed up, grunted a little, and regained his vertical position by himself. He brushed off his trousers and looked at his father. "I'm fine," the boy said. "It was just a bump." Sterling took a deep breath, swallowing his protective fear. "Well done, son," he said. And this time he meant it. Well recovered. They kept advancing. People watched them. They saw a disheveled millionaire, a maid walking like a queen, and a boy marching like a soldier drunk on happiness. They reached the park. The sun was almost setting. The grass was golden in the twilight. Charlie let go of the adult's hands when he saw the expanse of green. "Soft ground!" he shouted, and started to run. It was a clumsy, slow run, full of zigzags. One leg dragged a bit more than the other. His arms flailed out of control. To a doctor, it was pathological gait. To Sterling, it was the most perfect dance he had ever seen in his life. The boy ran 10 meters and let himself fall onto the grass, rolling over and over, laughing out loud, dirtying the thousands of dollars tuxedo with dirt and grass. Sterling stood still at the edge of the paved path, watching. He felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Maria. "Well," she said, "go get yourself dirty too." Sterling looked at her, smiled, and ran. The millionaire ran across the grass, feeling the dirt under his expensive shoes. He threw himself on the ground next to his son, rolling in the grass, hugging him, tickling him. "I caught you," Sterling shouted. "The space monster caught you. I'm not captain." Charlie laughed, kicking hard with those legs that now had life. "I have super strength in my legs." Maria stood watching them, took the old notebook from her pocket, found a pen, opened a new page, and wrote, "Day 1 of the new life." "The boss has grass stains on his shirt." Charlie ran 10 m without falling. The chair stayed behind. There was no pain today. Today there was a family. She closed the notebook, tucked it against her chest, and walked towards them to join the game. As the sun set, closing the day on which a disabled boy taught his father how to walk. The end.